Welcome to the All About Ability podcast. Yes, I nailed it. We've had a wee bit of a break the past few months, but we're back and we're ready to go again. And I'm really looking forward to the next few weeks in podcast. We're going to be back every Tuesday, 5 o'clock. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And we're going to have some good content coming your way, so stay tuned. Okay, so we're live. I'm notoriously terrible for introductions to people, but I think it's important to mention that we have a world champion in the building. Mm-hmm. You're actually the first All About Ability world champion to be in here. So, do you know, I've had so many thoughts about creating my own All About Ability world championship belt.
See, that's the thing. So there's like do you know there's rules for a title to be a world title?
Right.
Like there's specifications. Right. So, obviously, with the ICW World Heavyweight and the women's titles are both world titles because they have been defended in at least 5 countries and 3 continents. And that is like the actual like standard rule for a title to be a world title. I'm very nitpicky because there's lots of places that just call their title a world title and they're not. They're not world titles. But I think it's just because I know how much work like Drew and the others obviously put into making the heavyweight a world title, and how much work like Dewdrop, Viper, Piper Niven, or Kaylee Ray, or Alba Fire, whatever name you want to call them, put into making them actual world titles. So I don't know why, but I always get that wee like, you know, that wee twitch you get when you hear something that you're like,
Well,
I get that when people go, I was going to make a world title. So bang around the world.
So I think it's fair to say that I won't be calling it that.
It could be the Glasgow title. It could be the Scottish title.
Just a podcast title.
It could be the podcast title. Yeah. The title of the airwaves.
I kind of get my Iron Girders world title, so maybe.
Iron Girders doesn't have a world title. There's the Iron Girders Championship, and that's it.
But I mean, that will be a world title. I'm sure whoever.
We make it around the world. Yeah. Let's do that.
I'm sure whoever wins it will take it anywhere they can.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
So, in addition to Molly Spartan, everybody, by the way, just because I think people are like, who is the person he's talking to?
Who's this passive aggressive human being that you've got on your show today?
So, what's the name of the world champion? So, I've been really looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too.
It's great because it's like, I've recently gone to my first like ICW shows and sort of non-WWE shows, I guess, for the first time last year. And you definitely stood out. Because I think one thing I've noticed is everybody's really good at wrestling these days. Like, everybody knows. You don't go to a wrestling show and watch a bad match really that often, anymore.
Oh no, there's still some out there. The internet tells us that. But
basically what I'm saying is that the standard seems to have improved all round.
Yeah,
I think just because there's so many more shows and such and such.
Yeah. I think like I will say like I think the standard in Scotland has skyrocketed, but it's always been skyrocketing. Obviously we've got the likes. I mean, if you even think about not even 10, 15 years ago, the idea of having as many Scottish people on a WWE roster as there is now was practically unthinkable. I mean, a lot of people just thought, all right, okay, they've got Drew, so that's them got their Scottish person. Then you got Nikki going over, and then obviously there's the NXT UK roster coming through, which has my husband, as you know, Wolfgang, the Coffee Brothers, Kaylee Ray, Alba Fire, and then Viper / Piper Niven / Dewdrop, and the fact that she's on Raw as well now. They just sort of they've set a standard where it's now like, yeah, if you're actually good, you could make it to the big, you know what I mean, the big dance. Coming from this small island isn't really the thing that stops you anymore. And the fact that likes of ICW and such have only sort of led the way for the independent scene in Scotland. And then I think Glasgow has a very good reputation of producing some of the best talent. And yeah, it's good, and the schools are good, and the schools are thriving, and the talent that's getting poured out is is getting stronger and stronger. And I think there's a good sort of community as well with it. And there's a good sort of bondingness. I know that's not an actual word, but you know what I mean by that. Where we're all trying to elevate each other, because you only get better when you wrestle better people. So if you help everybody get better, then in theory you become better as well.
100%. I actually spoke about that exact thing to Leighton as a fan of Leighton Buzzard. His podcast is coming out Tuesday and yours is the following one, so I thought it'd be a good link up to mention that. Yeah. I'm very rarely this organised, so I'm quite buzzing about it. But he was just saying, I was saying to him about how, as a fan, and as somebody that has always been a fan that's now getting the chance to train because of your husband, seeing this group of people, I've always had this idea, you always have this idea that I got into like the internet wrestling community, as they call it, quite early. Yeah. Because I'm just obsessed with it all and wanted to know more about it. And, they tend to not have the most positive viewpoints on things.
Oh, yeah. No, always moaning about something.
but it was like, when I'm, the idea of the old school, idea of it was, when you're in wrestling, everybody's kind of playing politics and try to stamp on each other to get each other spots and all that. But when you go to Iron Goddard Gym or you go to these ICW shows, you're seeing a new roster of people that seem to have this great...
A new mindset.
Yeah, togetherness of like, we're all in this together. We're all trying to help each other, and it's great to see.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely still some people that politic and think for themselves. When like that, I'm not
name
saying
names.
that. I'm not naming names. But there's definitely that. But I know personally, and I think there's a lot of people that are similar to me, where it's the idea of when I'm not wrestling anymore, I want people to think of me in a fun, like, although maybe I'm this horrific human being in the ring, but I think when it comes to the other side, I want people to at least smile when I walk in a building, to be like, oh, Spartan's here, wonderful. And I've actively said, and I'm not going to name names, but if you're listening to this, you know who you are. There's been people that at a point in their time haven't believed in themselves, and I've actively been there to say, okay, if you don't believe in yourself, I'll believe in you until you start believing in yourself. And then when you start believing in yourself, I'll still believe in you. And I expect a shout out at your Hall of Fame speech years down the line. Cool. And I have said that to a few folk. And I believe it's that idea of, this isn't, you can't wrestle by yourself. At the end of the day, it's a dance. There's 3 people in that match at all times. There's you, at least. There's you, your opponent, and the referee. And if you are, well, I'll put it politely, an utter bell end, nobody wants to work with you. And if you're going to be a bell end in wrestling, you either need to be as talented as Shawn Michaels to get away with it. And I'm sorry, I ain't Shawn Michaels. I'm not saying I'm terrible, but I'm no Shawn Michaels, and I'm fully aware of that. Super kick, terrible super kick.
I've got a terrible super kick as well.
I could work on control your narrative, no problem. Can he do a super kick? So I'm fine. But yeah, like, I think there's that mentality of like, you only really get excused for appalling behaviour if you're a good person, but at the same time, there's no excuse. Just don't be a dick, man. Like, you know what I mean? I think that's a fair play in life, and wrestling's hard enough as it is. We're putting our bodies on the line for people's entertainment, and we love it, and we wouldn't want anything else, but it doesn't make it any easier if everybody backstage wants to murder each other. And that mentality quite nicely is getting thrown out the window, and this new sort of let's actually try and help each other mentality is stronger than it ever has been, and I do like it myself. Say so myself.
Definitely. With anything in life, I think it's a good mentality to have, that bringing others up as you're going up is a very important thing. Like, you always hear the stories of like the people that win the world titles and then they go in the big depression fall, like for example, Tyson Fury or something like that. It's the idea that you have this one main focus of just you and only you, and you finally achieve it, and then it's like, what now? Whereas when you're bringing people up and you're helping people along the way, you get this feeling of like, it's not just been about me, it's been about the whole community. I think that's a really important thing in life, and especially in wrestling, when it's been, notoriously known for being such a kind of toxic environment in the past, I guess.
I think when you have people like Drew McIntyre is the perfect example of someone that, yes, he worked hard on himself. He focused on himself and what he was able to do, but he knew it wasn't just like a one-man show. He knew that, like, and he never did, and he always wanted to try and bring people up when he was here. And I was lucky to sort of work with ICW, although I wasn't a wrestler at that point or part of the roster. I worked for ICW, and seeing someone with the talent and the abilities of Drew 100% being this locker room leader and trying his best to bring people up to his level, not try and be the show, and that's it. He's the main guy. And although like he was the main guy because he's a 6'4" like comic book stripped to a comic book, you know what I mean, character, and is an immensely talented human being. Christ, he's not the first Scottish world champion for any, you know what I mean, for no reason. He didn't beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania for no reason. But at the same time, his time at ICW, like 100%, he is a massive reason to why like ICW is on the network right now, because he came in and was like, right, we are all capable of doing this. We are all capable of putting on a show that people will travel to see. And he did. He was such a positive influence. Now, Grant, if you were terrible that evening or you did something wrong, he'd come and tell you. But he was never like condescending with it. He was always good at like helping people out, or if anybody had questions, you could approach him. He's although he might seem like a terrifying human being, like very approachable human being. Like, reason why I throw a good clothesline is because of Drew, because I simply asked him, how do you do that? Hit me with 3 in a row, and he went like that, and I went, cool, Drew, and got it straight away. And he always has the time for anybody if you want it, and he loves wrestling, like terrifyingly so. See, like him and Red, oh my lord, like encyclopedias, the pair of them. But yeah, it was that whole scene, and then having that sort of foundation of like your Wolfgangs, your Red Lightnings, your Jack Jesters, your BT Guns, your Lionhearts, and then your Vipers and your Kaylee Rays, and then your younger ones coming through, like your Stevie Boys, etc. Just, it was this sort of wonder pool of talent, and then all of a sudden Drew was like, can I come back and play with my friends, please? And we were like, yeah, and you come. And it just turned it up to 11. Yeah, I've lost the word I was talking about, but it feels positive, so I'm happy I'm here.
Well, that was an incredible. I mean, as a fan, it's just so amazing to hear, because you can see how much, you know, every wrestler that I've spoken to in the podcast has spoke so highly of him.
Yeah.
Particularly, and how much the whole thing is. It's amazing to watch how he could have went anywhere else and he came back to ICW and it was such a big boom and all these things. But you touched on briefly there in that incredible sort of explanation of how everything's evolved. I'm just sitting here like, just keep talking.
Yeah.
But no, you touched on briefly about the fact that you didn't actually, your start in wrestling was quite interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because you got in through being, you know, production, right?
Yeah.
There was something that you said that really stood out to me when I was listening to other interviews and actually doing a bit of a dive on you.
Not too much.
Well, we won't go into it all.
Don't spill my secrets.
But there was something you said when you were talking about, you know, you were watching wrestling, you've always been a fan of wrestling, and you're watching it and you're going, I think the exact quote was that there was nobody that you could watch on the screen that you could feel related to. There was nobody that you looked at and went, I can be like that, I can do this. So you thought, well, I'm going to get into this. I need to figure out a different way I can get into wrestling without being a wrestler. And that, when I heard you say that, it was like eerily similar to exactly how I feel about it. And it just shows you how people from different backgrounds and different situations can feel the same sort of thing. But you know, you start off being in production. How does that then evolve into you actually getting into the ring? So,
me getting into the ring, I genuinely think it sounds like some mad rom-com, right? I will start that. And yeah, you're right. Like, I started in sort of the production side, ICW, Started working there. When I started working there, the first show I worked at was at the Classic Grand, and everybody was super excited that it sold out with like 300 people. And it was like, people were like buzzing at this show that they'd done this. And it was very exciting at the time. But for me, it was a chance of like, I decided, right, I want to work in wrestling. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to work in wrestling. And you're right, like at the time watching wrestling, there was nobody that I felt I seen myself in. So for some reason, my brain didn't tell me you could be a wrestler. Like, why not be the wrestler? I just thought I didn't want to be rejected by the thing I loved the most. So I thought, right, I can work in it. I could write a show. I have ideas. I'm quite creative. So yeah, I decided, right, okay, I'm going to get in the production side of things. So I looked up on WWE's website and seen what sort of requirements they wanted for like your education levels and things like that. And I went to uni and I studied television and got my degree in television and did all that. Basically read what the WWE page said they wanted, and that's what I was going to do. And ICW came along. Weirdly, I did a project with Billy Kirkwood first. And then it was bizarre. The first time I met Billy, genuinely, we walked in. I offered him to get him a drink. He said he was straight edge. So am I.
Respect.
I had a Punisher hoodie on, and he had this Punisher bag. It was just weird parallels where it was like, I said, oh, I'm dyslexic. And he was like, me too. And like, it was like we were the same person that had just met. And I was like, this is weird. But we did this project, and I always remember filming, he had this Pepsi Cola tattoo on the inside of his like forearm. And I spied it, and I was like, I wonder if he's a CM Punk fan. And I was like, no, he's like, don't say that. Cause like it's already weird enough that you're part, like you're so similar. Like leave the wrestling out of it this time. Leave it out. And it wasn't until after we'd done the project and I just went, look, I just need to ask. Is the Pepsi Cola tattoo because you like Pepsi Cola, or are you a CM Punk fan? And if you don't know who CM Punk is, I'm really sorry. I apologise for the question. He was like, you know who CM Punk is? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm a massive wrestling fan. Blah, 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 blah. And then we became pals through that.
It's like that Step Brothers moment.
Oh yeah, yep. Like, did we just go best friends? Yep. Like that's exactly it. It was weird as anything. And then he started doing like a radio show with folk for ICW. He got the job, sort of like he was like a MC at first, and then he became the colour commentator. But I remember him messaging me saying like, you need to come to this show in Glasgow. Like it's mental. You'll love it. It's like ECW with a Glaswegian accent. And I was like, sold. I am coming. So me and a friend who had never seen wrestling before went and seen them when they were still in like, I think it was Apollo 23. It's where Glee is now. It's the comedy club. It was Jongleurs before and all that sort of stuff. So I went to see this show and was like, I need to be part of this. Met Dallas, was like, hey, I can get you a camera and some microphones for nothing if you just sign a bit of paper that says that I've worked here. And he was like, sure. So yeah, ended up working there. And yeah, worked there for a long time, sort of behind the camera. But we'll go back to the rom-com. We'll get there. So obviously working behind the camera meant that I knew everybody, and I was sort of I was there to sort of try and find people. Some people helped find their voices. Other people knew their voice. So just simply watching some of the best talkers talk, which I think's primarily down to the way that I'm not too shabby on a microphone myself. Because also if I wasn't, I think I'd get crucified by the people that I shouted out for years to go, come and do your promo. And if I could talk, yeah, I will. I'd be like, get her out. But yeah, so I remember there was one night, there was one night we were loading the van. It was an Edinburgh show. It was in August. We'd done this run at the Fringe. It was like every Sunday at the Fringe, ICW did this show. And it was loading the van out with the ring, and it was me and Wolfgang were passing these big beams through this tiny little door. It was a really awkward way of getting things out with these giant beams for the ring. And I just remember it was pouring it down outside. And for some reason, I just asked him, I was like, so what's next? Like, what would you want to do next? Like, what's your plans next? And for some reason, he ended up talking about how he wanted to coach people. Like, that's what he wanted to do next. But obviously, there was these two schools that were like really synonymous with Glasgow, and he didn't want to go to one to upset the other one because it's Wilfie. He's friends with everybody, and he doesn't want to upset anybody. But he also said that he had this sort of idea of his own, how he's seen and wanted to sort of coach people. And at that moment in time, I just said, okay, I'll be student number one. I was like, if you can get one, you can get two. If you can get two, you can get four, right? It's simple maths. So I'll be one. He's like, okay. And then a year passed, and then all of a sudden GPWA was forming. And the school was going to be in the same space that the ICW offices had just been sort of located in. A place that I visited regularly anyway, working with ICW. And I just remember him saying, like, were you serious about like being student number one? And I was like, yeah, I was serious. And at that point in time, genuinely, I thought, right, this is a new perspective. Like, this is as a camera operator working in wrestling, the only thing I didn't know what to do or how to do was actually what was between the ropes, like what was inside the ring. Like, I knew how to build the ring. I knew how to film the wrestling. I knew all the promos. I knew what the door ran like. I knew everything, but what happened inside those ropes. And
you must have had a sorry to cut off there, but like, I've got so many questions running through my mind. It's like I don't want to forget any of them, but like you must have had a really deep desire to want to know what that felt like as well.
Yeah.
At that point,
like I did, but I also thought, right, if I understand that, then it means I should be able to film this better. Like, I think one of the big unsung heroes of ICW is a man called Adam Carell. He's the guy that like directs pretty much all of the episodes on the network, and he's directed the live shows for a long like camera direction, and that's a huge job. But he also wrestled before. Like, he used to tag with DCT. He was the Muay Thai guy. I think that's how you say it, right? I might have said that wrong. Sorry, Adam. But he's a massive unsung hero. Huge credit towards him. Like, he doesn't get enough credit as he deserves, Adam Carell. But he sort of learned how to wrestle. So I think he was able to adapt to film and wrestling, no problems, because he knew what was happening. He understood what happened between the ropes. But at that point I didn't. So I thought, you know what, I'll learn a new perspective. Like, 8 weeks, that was the sort of the first induction period, was 8 weeks. And after that, I can see how it goes. And then 8 weeks passed and I realised, oh, this is what I want to do. Like, this is where I belong. This is where I should be. And it was that sort of weird, it's the weirdest realisation of being, again, like, I must have been 25 maybe when I first started training.
I'm 25.
Yeah. So first started training, I was 25. I must have been 25. And so it wasn't like I wasn't an Angel Hayes that started when she was 14. Right, and she's unbelievable. Like, although she's the thorn in my side at all points and times, no matter where we are in the world, I just feel like I'm always going to end up stuck with her. But incredibly talented, and is only like 2021 and has so many years under her belt. She's good already, you know what I mean? And that's difficult. But I was starting at 25 and thinking, okay, I'm no spring chicken. But at the same time, I was still young. Like, I'm not saying that was old in any way, shape. Please don't crucify me, internet. But yeah, it's that kind of way where trying something new and being what you would deem an adult, like at 25, and realising, oh, this is my dream, which is bizarre to realise, like, oh, I might not be terrible at this. I might actually be able to do this. And at that moment in time, you had the likes of the triple named wonder that is Viper, Piper Niven, and Dewdrop. She was completely dominating in like Japan and obviously Kaylee by her side. Like them two just sort of completely going from these small towns in Scotland, Ayrshire and Johnson, and then just travelling around the world, just being bosses of their own right, and going, right, okay, so if she can do it, then maybe I can do it. Maybe I don't need to look like Kelly, because although I have nothing against Kelly, I have never looked like or like related to Kelly in my life. Like, there are loads of people that will. I ain't Kelly. Never will be. Never have been. That's just not me. And actually having somebody that I'm like, okay, so you can be my size. You can be from where I'm from. You can look like me and be a wrestler and be successful at this. And yeah, I just went, okay. And I always remember, am I allowed to swear on this?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just check. Sorry, Mum, if you're listening, I apologise, but I'm quoting somebody here. I always remember after the 8-week induction, like with GPWA, you do like your induction course and then you get basically told, are you through to the next class, or do you need an induction again, or what do you need to go to sort of work on? Because for some people, it is as simple as, okay, so you need to work on this or you need to do that and then come back for your induction. But with me, I just remember Adrian McCallum, the late great Lionheart, just saying, mate, I thought you were going to be shite. And I was like, oh, thanks. And he was like, I thought you were going to be shite, but you're not, so congratulations. And I was like, oh, thanks, mate. Like, but at the same time, that was him over the back, like just sometimes too blunt for his own good. But yeah, like, I think a lot of people assumed I was going to be probably much more delicate than I actually am. Now they realise that I'm a bulldozer and I've never been a delicate flower ever. But yeah.
I have so many questions.
Most people do.
Like, first of all, it's just a buzz to listen to you talk about all that, because you can sort of feel the story, if you like, when you're saying it. And it also, from a personal point of view, like sounds eerily similar to what I've went through as well, which is really bizarre. But okay, so where are we going to start here? But I want to go back to Villa Kirkwood for a quick second.
Okay.
Because you mentioned being straight edge. And I was just curious as to where the straight edge mentality came from for you.
So mine's is a strange one, because for some reason, I don't know if it's just well, actually, no, it's not just in Scotland, it's anywhere. The amount of times where somebody's offered me a drink and I've said, no, sorry, I don't drink. And they'll go, oh, why? And I'll go, I'm straight edge. And they'll go, oh, something happened. Did you have, was somebody in your family an alcoholic? And I'm like, no, like, why do I have to have an alcoholic uncle to want to be straight edge? I understand there's a lot of people that aren't like that because of that, but that's not, I've never had an issue with alcohol. I've never had issues with drugs or anything. I've a very strong belief, your body, do what you want with it, like, just don't force it upon me. If you're not going to force it upon me, we're happy, right? We're cool. And apart from heroin, if I ever catch you doing heroin, I'll pull you up about it and tell you pack it in. If Lemmy says no to heroin, everybody say no to heroin. Say no to heroin, folks. It's bad stuff. But it's that kind of way where, with me, it genuinely started as a rebellious thing, which sounds strange, because most people rebel when they're teenagers by drinking. But mine was the opposite. And I always, you know what, I'm going to call him out, because boy, he was a fanny at school. So I always remember I was in geography, and it was a boy called Darren Goodykett. Yes, Darren. He was a moon-faced twat then, and he's a moon-faced twat now, right? And I would say that, right? And he for some reason, we were in the middle of geography, and he turned around to me and he asked me 2 questions. I was like 13, 14, right? And he asked me, am I a virgin? And did I drink? That was his 2 questions to me. I genuinely don't know what came over him, but he just turned round and said, like, are you a virgin? Do you drink? And at that point in time, I went, yeah, I'm a virgin, and nah, I don't drink. And I just answered honestly, because I was just like, okay. And the way he was like, well, you're a freak, you're a loser, you're a... And it was so like, I vividly remember it, so like vicious and violent for like something so stupid. And I was like, oh, okay, this is odd. Like, why are you acting like that? That's bizarre. Like, why? Like, I was like, okay, cool. And in all honesty, when I was at high school, like, I had hair that would challenge Motley Crue. Like, I had the thick black eyeliner that challenged Amy Winehouse. I wore my school uniform was like, I had this like open shirt that had like punk and skull patches all over it. I had these big baggy trousers. I'd wear one pink and one black Converse, and like I was like ultimate like emo scene metal goth kid, like alternative. I was the alternative kid in my school. So there were some folk that were just like weirdo every time they'd see me. So I was used to people being like, "Are you listening to?" And I had my fair share of like fannies to deal with. But I'd always remember him just, and I've always been like, that was bizarre. And then like every time we'd go down, and where I was from, like there's a park that everybody would walk through and meet. No matter, like there'd be certain parts that like the skaters would meet, the ramps, and you know what I mean. So, and I remember just going down at the weekends, and always there'd be somebody going, "Do you want a drink? Do you want a drink? Or take a drink." And I'd be like, "Nah, I'm alright." And there was something about them. It was something about the peer pressure I realised was peer pressure quite early on, and was like, nah, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm just going to sit back and just watch this unfold kind of thing. And then when I sort of turned 18, like when when legally you're deemed suitable to be an adult at 18. No one is 18. Nobody's an adult at 18. It says on a bit of paper, but that's about it. Let's be honest, right? When you're 18, you think you're an adult. When you get past that, you then realise, oh, I was still a child. But then that's when you could go out. And by that time, I'd kind of realised that I didn't really care about like people that I didn't know's opinions. Like, of course, as a teenager, we like, and being every single one of us cares about certain people's opinions. And although there's always the people that are like, I don't care, that's a lie. Everybody does, but it's all about realizing. I think a really important life lesson is to figure out whose opinion matters to you, and if they don't care, then it doesn't matter. Like, figure out whose opinion matters to you in the world, and then if they have a problem, then you deal with it. You talk about it, and that's an issue. But if they don't care, and most people that love and care about you aren't going to care if you dye your hair black, or if you decide to wear bright yellow shoes, or if you listen to Metallica or Kanye West. They don't care. They care about you. They care about your well-being. They're the people that you care about, and they're the people's opinions you should care about. But I think I realised that a lot younger than most people do. So I feel like when I would go out to nightclubs, I'd have the mentality of like, if I want to dance on the table, I'm going to dance on the table because I want to, not because I've had 4 Jaeger bombs, 3 pints, and a cocktail. Like, I'm just going to dance on it because I want to go. I'm going to dance on the table. It looks fun. If karaoke is a hit, so sign my name up. I'll chant some tunes that night because I want to, not because I need to have alcohol as this crutch. So that's sort of, and it was just a natural progression. I just didn't do anything, and in doing so, I ended up going, oh, I'm straight edge. Okay, that's cool. I just ended up falling into that lifestyle, and then found Casey Owens, who is also straight edge. So
what are the chances of that?
I know. Like, the pair of us, there's the she wolves are straight edge, and we were the pair that always ends up going, right, who's hungry? Who's coming to get pizza? That's us at the end of the show. But that's sort of where the straight edgeness comes from. The pair of us are a pair of straight edge wolves.
I mean, honestly, first of all, wow, I'm so glad I asked that question because I could have just moved on for that stuff. But it's such an important message because there's so many young people are influenced by what other people think, and there's a lot of when people talk about the mental health sort of pandemic, a lot of it's based off of the fact that young people in their 20s are basing their whole personality off of other people's approval.
Yeah, I mean, like I do find there's like, although there is great things with social media and stuff like that, there's also a lot of negatives too. I mean, I think I was lucky enough to I existed in the world when there wasn't the internet, and I at least had a childhood with no internet. Like I remember, like my dad worked offshore for years, so we had AOL and quite early when it was available because my dad would have bits of computers for offshore that he'd build in the house, and like so. And I always remember sort of like the early days of Bebo and like in MySpace. I loved my MySpace. I loved making the backgrounds and adding my songs and stuff like that. But yeah, like this constantly feeling that you have to have stuff to show the world. And like I actively, when I go to concerts now, I'd like take a very mental note to go, right, okay, I'm going to take a photo of the gig now and with my friends, and then the phone goes away. Like, because I like, to me, I've been at gigs where there's been no phones. Like when I was younger, there was no phones in the crowd. But then nowadays, like I think the last big gig I went to was My Chemical Romance at the Hydro. But the last time I went to see My Chemical Romance, there wasn't like any phones in the crowd. Was it I think the last to the Corn Exchange, yeah, like one of the last times there was no really at that point phones were starting to come back. I remember seeing them at like the Barrowlands. Yeah. And there was no phones, and you know what I mean? You didn't see phones getting whipped out to like record stuff. And there wasn't this like all of a sudden this sea of screens appearing in front of you before it hits the stage. Where now, as soon as those jangling piano keys for Black Parade or Teenagers or any of the big hits, there's a screen, there's a screen. And I'm like, put it down, enjoy it. It's there in front of you. You spent your whole life watching them on a screen or listening to music, especially with a lot of young fans because they did break up for a long time. And now you're seeing them live. They're there. You're in the room with them and you're going like, you've got your phone in the sky. I'm like, put it in your pocket. Enjoy this. Watch it. But yeah, I think there's this pressure for people to constantly like produce and like show like I'm having the best life ever. Where in reality, some of the people that are having the best life ever just aren't showing it. Like I want to take photos with my friends because I want to keep the photos with my friends so that in years down the line I could look back on them. And yeah, I do post on social media because I feel like it's a great tool as a performer to have. But I know there's more people that are younger than me that really feel this like crippling pressure to always have something and to always have to try and look a certain way or things like that. But there's days where I'll open my camera and go, oh dear Lord, not today, and just that's it. Like it's fine. But yeah, you're definitely like, I do think like social media has had a major part on the mental health aspect for a lot of people. But even with this, it's like, again, I go back to the idea of figure out who in your life's opinions matter, truly matter. Because when you get that, see like trolls and stuff, they become a lot easier to deal with. Like, and I'm not going to sit here and say that they're a delight to deal with, but I've been able to find the sad, dark humour in it. Like I remember, I remember when I sort of wrestled for ROH. I wrestled Mandy Leon, and I had a great time. Somebody put it up on YouTube, and one of the first comments I seen was, "Oh, I've seen it now. A fat Spartan," was the comment, right? Now, Grant, some people, like I've always had that where I've been like, "Oh my God, I need to stop eating, and I need to go to the gym, and I need to just like," and they'd go in a spiral, and Where on the other hand, I came running down those stairs laughing my tits off and saying to Wolfie, I've made it. I've got my first troll. I've got my first proper troll. Because at the end of the day, I think, right, how sad is your life that part of your brain thought, I'm going to write this. I'm going to write this in a forum and then I'm going to send it to the person and I'm going to feel some kind of satisfaction about trying to take, like, get a grip, man. Like, focus on other things in your life. Like, you're focusing on this. You have a creative outlet. You're like, right, I want to do something that's cool. And you're doing this. You're doing the podcast because you've got something in your life where there's these people where I'm thinking, do you genuinely have nothing in your life that you think, I'm going to do? I'm going to go on the internet and I'm going to say mean things to women that I don't know. And I'm like, get a grip. Find a hobby. Start knitting. World of Warcraft's there. Go find people with battle online. Just do something.
No, definitely. I mean, I don't even know. I was actually recently sort of talking about how the best success in life is self-acceptance.
Hey.
And you seem to have this really, from a really early age, a strong mentality of, I'm who I am and fuck anyone else that disagrees with it.
I mean, Grant, I'm not going to sit here and say that I've not had my girly, like, mental breakdowns, because we all have.
It's
like,
life, innit?
Yeah. You all have mental exhaustion, and some days you don't like yourself, and other days you really like yourself, and like, but it's that weird sort of thing where I've always had this mentality of, fuck them, right? Fuck them, right? Say if they want to drag me down, they're not going to get to. Say they want to say bad things about me, I'm going to lean in harder to them, right? But I don't know if that was because I was the school weirdo and I got it anyway. So I thought, they think my hair's too big? Watch it get bigger. Where's the hairspray, right? I've always had that kind of like, okay, you think I can't do this? Watch me. Kind of sort of mentality.
I relate to that so much, you don't even know.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that can relate to it. But I also think there's a lot of people that sort of need to go, you know what? She's right. Do you think I can't do it? Watch me do it. Because I also think one of the biggest, self-acceptance is a great thing to like, is a great success. But also just that, like, it's weird to say, like, proving people wrong is, it's a buzz. Like, it's a buzz, man. Like, it's one of my biggest things. Like, so you think I can't do this? Like, when I said earlier, like, I'm dyslexic, but I went to university. It wasn't stopping me. Although it may have took me much longer to read the stuff that I needed to read and study the things I needed to study, I was like, watch me. I'm going to do this. I'm not stupid. You think I'm stupid? All right, let me go to uni and I'll do what I want to do. Oh, you think I can't? Okay, watch me. And I've just kind of got that sort of embedded into me, and I think I try and embed it into some other people that are coming up where they've got doubts and they've got fears, and I'm like, that's human, right? Having your fears and having your doubts, that's this horrible bit at the back of your brain that we're all born with that sort of goes, I don't think you can. But at the same time, I think that's a whisper. I'm just going to have this big screaming part in the front of my head that goes, I can, fucking watch me. And it's that self-acceptance, because the biggest block in anybody's life is yourself. And if you stop yourself, no one else can help you. But if you at least try and you fail, then there's people that can help you. And I'm not saying we can all do everything. I can't draw to save myself, right? Terrible at spelling, terrible at drawing. But I'm quite creative and I have friends that are great at drawing. And I go, right, I can think of this idea, but can you draw it for me? This is great, right? And we've all got great skills, and we all can't do everything, but I think you never know unless you try. And I think you sort of getting coaching and stuff like that at Girders, it's a great thing. It's a great step. Like, you are the prime example of, well, if I tried. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's no, it's completely admirable.
That's what I want to do. Like what you're saying there, it's about showing people that there's nothing needs to stop you with this, and it's fucking fantastic. You want to come back on next week?
But it is true. Like, we all have our hurdles. Like, we definitely do, and we like. and accepting your weaknesses is as important as accepting your strengths. Because if you don't look at your weaknesses as well, then you're just going to end up just probably incredibly arrogant and not realising what's sort of crumbling around you. But sometimes the acceptance of your weaknesses becomes a strength because you go, okay, like I was saying earlier, I can't do a super kick. Terrible. My hips don't go that high. They just don't. But I can throw my body at you. I can hit a belt and crossbody. I can do, you know what I mean? Like there's the acceptance and like I completely commend you for it because you are going, well, if I don't try, I'll never know. I think the unknown is sometimes scarier than anything else.
There's something quite like deep rooted about this for me because it's like I'm listening to it and I'm like, see, for the longest time I didn't try. Like, I think you're talking about your whole mentality of alcohol and drugs and things like that. It's like, for me, it was like I've tried to figure out a way of standing out that wasn't in to do the wheelchair. So from an early age, a lot of kind of bad things happen to you, people, and I didn't have the same sort of thick skin that you talk about here. So I started drinking really early and doing all sorts of bad things, and I didn't think it was worth trying. You know that story how you went into production?
Yeah.
So in my head I was like, there's not even any point in me looking at it because nobody's ever going to want to have a part of any of this stuff. And then I think that's how this whole podcast eventually began, because as I went from being a boy to a man, it was like, I don't need to think like this anymore. Like, but the fact that I thought like that at one point is the whole idea of being like, I don't want anyone to ever feel that way. And then even just by trying, I started a podcast and then I get wrestlers on, Wolfgang, and he's like, you want to come train? And I'm like, absolutely, man. Yeah. You're fucking joking. And then you go and you train and it's like, the first time I got in the ring, I was like, it was almost like he was batting me because I'm like, couldn't stop smiling. He was beating the shit out of me and I'm smiling. It's like, because I like cut off, there's a great quote for Brian Danielson, I feel like, where he was talking about when he got injured and he had to retire, he had all these thoughts about wrestling, all these things he wanted to do still, it's like a mathematician with all these like different equations and he couldn't do any of them. So it was like devastating for him. For me, that was like, these things that I have that I really want to do, like I really want to be a wrestler, I really want to play football, I really want to do all these things and I had to shut off wrestling because I was like, I have so many thoughts. Like I didn't just watch wrestling matches, I would watch wrestling matches and dissect it and be like, well, this guy's doing this and she's doing that. And I had to just switch it off because it made me feel too, like you said, it was like rejection for something you love.
Yeah.
Thing. And I'm just listening to that and I'm like, that's so exactly the reason why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Is to show people that you can do it. But even just by trying resulted in all these wee things leading up to me eventually being in the ring. Yeah. And it's almost like if you want something enough, you'll manifest it in a reality.
Yeah. Like you're completely right with that. It is that, like, I always say to people, like, yeah, like at least try is the main thing. Like some people, like, I might want to be a footballer, but I'm not very good. My brother was the footballer, but I wasn't. But it's that idea of like, or at least try to kick the ball. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, I think sometimes you can try things and you realise it's not for you or it's not what you thought it was. And that's fine. That's completely fine. There's nothing, there's you know what I mean? Like it's more commendable that you actually tried than just wonder. Because to me, the idea of just wondering is worse.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that like now the idea of not wrestling seems like a nightmare. At the time, I was happy because I was working in wrestling. I'd done everything to work in wrestling. But you're right, when I watched WWE and in my early 20s, like teenager in the early 20s, there wasn't anybody that I related to. Like the closest person I felt like I really related to was like Beth Phoenix, because she was this sort of bigger, strong woman. But at the same time, she was blonde and American. And I was neither of those. And there was just this feeling of, it might not even be about me personally. It might be from where I'm from is the problem. Because there wasn't that you know what I mean? There wasn't people with my voice. And I don't know if you can tell, I quite like talking.
It's amazing. I feel like not having that hope as a young person is a real killer.
Yeah, it is like and I think a lot of young people do go through that, still go through that, went through it as a day, but I know I always come back to it, figure out whose opinions matter, and then just do what you want, or at least try.
You know how many DMs I got when I posted about I put a post out after the first session I done, just saying like, because initially, and also I've got so many things that I talked about. It's just from what you're saying, and I'm like, I want to just express how incredible it is to hear this. It's also mad to me that you started doing it when you were 25, because I'm also 25. It's just kind of a weird sort of parallel. But you know, my whole thing was I posted about it, and it was like so many DMs of people being like, what are you talking about? How are you going to do this? Like, this is impossible. You literally can't do this. And there was something about that was like, oh, because I spoke to Dallas. Basically what I was trying to say is, like, last year I did this mental thing, right? Where I did like, every time I tell people this, they're like, this can't be real, right? It was a challenge for charity. It was 1,000k in a month. So I did it on a ski machine where I was doing 40k every day for 30 days to get 1,000k, and we raised over $2,000 for mental health charities. And Dallas had somehow caught on to this because I was posting about it. I can't really remember exactly how he discovered me. He discovered me, and he followed me, and I said to him, "Do you want to come down and do some of the, you know, mileage with me?"
Going to give me a break.
And so he came in, and we chatted, and I was like, man, I'd love to do something. Like anything. You want to throw me off a Hell in a Cell, man? Like, it's like if you get some mad, see if you ever get some mad crazy shit that no one wants to do, and you want somebody to do it, I'll do it. Do you know what I mean? And he was like, right, okay. I was pure like right in his face about it. And sometime we talked about maybe filming, like the idea of me going into the ring and sort of filming it and me making it into like a vlog thing of like, oh, look at this guy, and use it to promote one of ICW's events. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is such a cool idea. So even in that moment, my thought was, I could maybe do a spot or a thing somewhere, you know, some wee thing, right? Even then I was still like, I can't be a wrestler. Like, that's not how it's going to happen. And then I just kept talking about it and wanting to do it. And when Wolfgang came in here, and he was like, I was actually in quite a bad place when he came in. I think it was like near the end of last year. And obviously having Wolfgang on me was like a huge deal, because I know I'm obsessed with wrestling. So I was in a pretty bad place mentally last year for a lot of the time, and I've sorted a lot of stuff out. But I remember when he said he was like, you want to come down and train? And I was like, for my fireworks went off my head. I was like, of course, I would love to do that. But then I was like, I wondered how this is going to feel. And see, as soon as it went into the ring, it was like, I should have been doing this years ago. And so my mind, right after that, I spoke to Dallas, and I was like, by the way, I'm not interested in doing just a spot. Like, I want to be a wrestler. So I told him, I was like, I'm going to be a wrestler, so just keep that in mind. And it was just such a weird sort of realization of this thing that you thought you couldn't do for so long. And it's the whole idea of like, it's not just about me, it's also about, you know, like, if I'm in a ring and I'm cutting a promo, or I'm doing anything wrestling related, somebody in a wheelchair or anybody with a disability can watch that and be like, well, I can do this as well. And being able to give that to young people would be like, if my younger self could see myself doing that, it would be the most amazing thing. So it's not just about me, it's about having that impact for the next generation to be like, if he can do it, I can do it. Do you know what I mean?
The thing is also in wrestling, there's loads of jobs. Let's be honest, right? You can be a wrestler, you can be commentator,
Billy Cutwood, I'm coming for you.
You could be, you know what I mean? There's so many aspects of it that I think, for some reason, I feel like people think that's this like mad like secret club, and you start training and there's all these weird handshakes, and it's not that at all. If you've got a passion and you're passionate for something, you can find something to do, because I never thought I'd be the wrestler. I was there for like 5-6 years before I ended up getting in there, which is, when you actually think about it now, you're like, well, even when I think about it now, I was like, that's mad. I spent that amount of time around all that, went on tours and everything, didn't get in the ring, wasn't in the ring. And I was like, now it seems bizarre. But at the same time, I was very happy in the job I had. But yeah, it's that kind of thing where I think even you could be a wrestler, and then once you're finished wrestling, you could be a commentator, you can be a manager, a valet, a writer, a producer. Like, think about all the WWE lot that are like producers now.
Mm-hmm.
They did their stint in wrestling, and then they don't wrestle anymore, so they help the next generation. And I feel like wrestling is that one that, like, you give your wrestling a go, you do your wrestling, and then you go, right, okay, I've done my wrestling.
Or
here's all the...
you could be Ric Flair.
Or you could be Ric Flair. But I think Ric Flair's like pickled now, that's why he's still alive.
He's actually having one more match as well.
I know. My mate Kenny from Inside the Ropes, he's doing like a show with Bret Hart.
Kenny? I love Kenny.
Yeah. Kenny's one of my best friends in the
Get
whole
him
world.
on here, man. I love that guy. I love that guy.
He's going over. He's doing like the Starcast thing with Bret Hart. So he's away over there, but that's the same time as Ric Flair's having his last match. And I'm like, I kind of want to be there for it, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm so scared it's going to be a car crash.
I mean, it's hard to tell, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if it's just not something, because I thought, I mean, if it's bad for Triple H and Shawn Michaels, you know, it probably, I don't know if Ric Flair's got much hope, because I watched that match they had with Undertaker and Kane at Saudi Arabia. And it was just very much like, I wish this didn't happen, basically.
Yeah. It's that kind of way where I wish, like, the only thing that gives me hope about it is Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
It's Ric Flair. But at the same time, I wish that his last match would have been him and Michaels at Mania.
Yeah. No,
and that would have been the perfect crescendo.
I can see how it's hard to let go. Also,
it's impossible. Like, it's so hard.
There's so many things that you've mentioned that I want to talk about, right? But it's dawning on me that this podcast with you is supposed to be promoting a specific ICW event. Right, so you've obviously had an incredible journey, and you're now the ICW Women's World Heavyweight Champion.
Mm-hmm.
Now that, I mean, is there a part of that that's surreal for you, first of all?
Yeah, like it's there is like this. It's weird watching yourself back, because sometimes when I watch myself back now, I'm like, that's not me. If that makes, like, it's this weird, like, oh, there's Molly Spartan. What's she up to? That's me. Like, and it's this weird sort of, it's this really weird surreal journey. And like, I was in the company when the current title like was crowned, you know what I mean? And it being defended and watching it become a world title, going from just a women's title to a women's world title as well, and seeing the graft that went into that, and watching it being travelled all over the world and thrown from pillar to post and being in cage matches and that sort of thing, and standing at the sidelines and watching it happen, watching my best friend win it 3 times, and then all of a sudden it's mine. And it's bizarre. Like, it's that weird sort of thing. Like, I think the one thing I have is that I have so much respect for that title, because I know exactly how much work went in to make it what it is, that now I'm like, right, where am I going with this? So
Japan.
Well, that would be incredible. But yeah, like, I want to go anywhere and everywhere. I want to take it to places where it's never been before. I want to do things that is never. I want to add extra history to it that hasn't got on it, because the names that are already, you know what I mean, with that title I respect so much as people, not just even as wrestlers. Like, I'm very glad that, like, basically everyone that's held that title is a, you know what I mean, a very positive role model, has made such a great influence and such a impact on the scene as a whole, that I'm now like, hey, I better try my best. Yeah. And be that as well, because having that title does make you the locker room leader. It does mean that, like, you are you know what I mean? You are the guy, the girl, the whatever, because
head of the table.
yeah. Acknowledge me. You are that person. And there is a bit of pressure and weight that comes with that. But I watched every single person who held it before it do with it with such grace and dignity, and I'm coming here to ruin that all. But yeah, no, just yeah.
Well, see, you know, you have a lot of big plans with it, obviously, right? But we're having a good time here. We're laughing at, but let's get serious for a second.
You're going to ruin this, didn't you?
Let's get serious for a second.
We're having such a great time. I'm boss this up.
Let's get serious for a wee second.
Okay.
Because the question that becomes, are you going to have it for much longer?
Yes.
Shug's house party, night 1, I believe, isn't it? Night 1?
What, night 1, yeah.
You have quite the challenge coming up. Martina is, now I'm my full name's actually escaping me, and it was just totally criminal.
Session Moth Martina.
Because I read it so many times before this, and I'm like, I can't actually say Session Moth Martinez. But she, you know, I was watching what she was saying about you, and she's obviously travelled the world and wrestled quite a few. And I think in this kind of match, there's sort of, you know, typically watching wrestling, like the sort of big star name comes back in, and the whole idea is they come in and they win the belt for this big moment at the show. So how you feeling about that? You know, so I'm
loving how nervous you're getting with this question. You're like, oh no, I'm going to say the words that are going to come out now.
But just when I'm about to say I feel on the other side, I'm kind of like sweating. You know?
Good sweat. The thing is, like, I think my initial reaction was, how dare you send a video to play after my match? Show up yourself. If you want to challenge me to something like that, have the balls and say it to my face. But I understand I'm not, you know, in the ring, the most approachable person. I'll give you that. Like, I'm very much I'm a does what it says on the tin kind of girl when it comes to being in the ring. But I think a lot of people expected me to sort of just shrug this off because it was Session Moth Martina. But the thing is like, I've seen the change in Session Moth herself. Like, I've seen her go from Kaza G, which I don't think any of you's probably ever heard of that, but that's what she used to wrestle back in Ireland, to what she is now. And it is worlds apart. And I mean worlds apart. The fact that she has been at Stardom, she's worked for AEW, she's worked for ROH, she's worked for so many very respectable and commendable companies that's not a fluke. Like, you have to have some talent to at least be even recognised by them, never mind be signed by them. And I think a lot of people expect this match to start off with some hijinks and hilarity, and they will laugh while she dances to the ring and nicks somebody's pint and things like that. But I think the problem with Martina is I can see exactly what she is, and she's exactly like me. Like, exactly like me. She has everything to prove. Like, I don't think a lot of people understand, because they see her and they think, oh, this is going to be a great laugh. And it is. She is a great laugh. I'll give her that. But she's also an incredible competitor. She is one of the biggest names. She is one of the biggest exports to come out of of Ireland and come to the UK for for a long time. You know what I mean? I think she came off sort of just the back of your Kayleys and your Vipers and things like that, and she was the golden goose for a long time, and she still is to an extent, and she is that because she goes further afield and further afield, and I have all the respect in the world for her to be a performer, and I know what she's capable of. But the fact that I know that she's capable of that, the fact that I know what sort of accreditations come with her means that it means more to me, and I gain more out of it than she gains out of it, really. I mean, if she beats me, I'm the new girl. I mean, I'm feisty. I'm definitely not the girl that she'd met so many years ago. The last time she won the world title, I was still holding a camera. I was a simple trainee backstage, holding that camera, filming her dancing around, wear glow sticks and wear pint. And now she comes back and I'm the women's world champion. And the thing is, I don't think she even remotely understands because she's been so busy going around the world, performing around the world, becoming a world-class performer, where sometimes being Scottish, being as spiteful as I can be, might be the thing that fuels me more than her world-class credentials. So yeah, I know I say it all the time, but at the end of Shug's house party, Martina will know her place in ICW, and the world will know their place, that I am the ICW Women's World Champion, and that title will go around the world with me, and it will be etched in history.
Wow, it's quite a backlog story you've got with her, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm hyped for that. I'm hyped. I think it's, it feels like a kind of full circle moment for you in that sense, because you've had this incredible journey, but you've both sort of went in different paths, and now you're coming together perhaps as the more what's the word, seasoned performers than you've done in the past.
Oh, like I know exactly how, like, I respect her so much. I think I respect her way more than she even thinks I do. Because I know what she was classed as. She was, it's Martina, it's the comedy wrestler. It'll be a laugh, it'll be fine, but she's far more than that. And let's be honest, why on earth would they just book a comedy wrestler to go against me? That's just crucifying somebody to put just a comedy wrestler. And they know she's more than just a comedy wrestler. And realistically, we all know that. But we like to just be like, it's comedy, it'll be fun, it'll be nice. We'll watch some mad serious thing, and then Martina will come out and dance, and we'll all have a drink. And yeah, I don't see that as a bad thing. Having fun isn't bad. But the problem is I'm incredibly spiteful and have a massive chip on my shoulder. And I'm sorry, hen, you are going to end up getting the brunt of that. And I really hope she goes away realising, oh, I actually have a new competition here. I have someone that is stepping up to the mark. And yeah, could be even more exciting that maybe at some point I'll defend it against her at someplace else in the world.
There's a good tease for you. The dynamic is very interesting, and I feel like that tease. How long have you been going for, Matt? I feel like there's so many more things. Well, I talked about like there's literally so many more things, but for the sake of ICW and the way you've just talked about that there, I feel like that is sort of a good way to get close to it. I do have one particular subject I want to touch on before we finish, which was, because I'm just really curious in terms of, from a fan point of view, right? The whole evolution of women's wrestling has been very, over the last sort of decade plus, has been very drastic and fast, and you went from like bra and panties matches to main event WrestleManias, and And it's like as a women's wrestler, you know, there's been a lot also made of, you know, different the kind of culture of wrestling. What has been the biggest change for you in terms of the way things are, the perception of women wrestlers, and how does it feel seeing people main event WrestleMania?
I mean, I find it really funny that all of a sudden people are surprised that when you actually let women and let them learn how to wrestle, that they can do it. Like when you listen to, like, I think one of my favorite ones to watch on like the network is, I can't remember if it's like, it's not a 24, it's like one of their ones, but it's with Bailey and Sasha talking about their match at Takeover and how they were keeping things secret because they knew if they said anything it would get taken away from them. So they didn't tell, oh, we're going to do this in our match, because that sort of stuff was left for the boys. And that unbelievably boils my blood. Like, to a point where I'm just... And it's that idea of like, the likes of Fit Finlay, like that man, like he is like one of, he's weirdly like, he's like a godfather of women's wrestling, because he was the guy that taught the girls to wrestle. He was the guy that was like, no, let's teach the girls. And I think when it seems to be like, no matter if you love them or hate them, WWE is the flagship. You know what I mean? They are the main influence when it comes to, especially the westernized thing. I mean, Japan, it's very different. Like, women's wrestling over there has always been sort of revered and much more respected as a sport on its own. Christ, Miko Satomura isn't as good as she is for nothing, kind of thing. She is the final boss because she's been doing it for so long. But it is that kind of thing where over here, sort of westernized world, WWE is the flagship. They are the flag bearer. And if all they're doing is putting on brand panties matches and mudslinging and things like that, that's all that's going to be expected out of women on shows in the UK, on independent shows. That's the standard because that's what's being broadcast. Whereas soon as you actually decide, hey, maybe we should teach the women how to wrestle. Because it's not that there hasn't been good wrestlers. I mean, there's a reason why, like, Paige did so well, because her whole family are all wrestlers. She was taught how to wrestle. And then when she went over, she learned, you know what I mean? Like, it was just nurtured. But it's that weird sort of thing where now it's that idea of, like, I'll still occasionally get somebody going over going, you know, I didn't expect that women's match to be that good. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, I don't understand, because we are taught exactly the same in the same environment. We're taught the same things. We're taught the same standard. We're expected to perform the same way as any guy. And well, I know at least in GPWA, I was expected to do absolutely everything the same as the guys were. So how does that mean that when it comes to Showtime, my match is meant to be of a lower standard? That doesn't make any sense. If anything, I'm like, I'm going to do this. As I said, I've got that sort of chip. But yeah, I think once WWE allowed there to actually be wrestlers, not just divas. And another thing is, like, the divas era and the people that were there and stuff like that, like, you held it together. You know what I mean? Like, you kept the ship afloat, like, and stuff like that. But it is just that way of, like, letting them actually have proper, solid wrestling matches, the exact same as any of the guys would have performed, was a major, like, you know what I mean, turning point, because then it became the standard across the board meant the girls need to be the same as the guys now, which it should have always been. Because I know, like, growing up, my parents never taught me gender roles. So I don't know, like, they just never did. So I remember my mum tells me the story about when she came to pick me up from nursery one day, and she got pulled into the classroom, like, to have a word. And they were like, oh yes, so we had a bit of an issue today. And she was like, all right, what's the problem? And they were like, the boys didn't want her to play with them, and she didn't understand. And you was like, what happened? They went, well, they said that this was only this game was only for boys. And she was like, no, it's not. Because I still didn't understand. I was like, I know how to play that game. What do you mean it's not for just boys? Like, I know how to play that game. And even as a toddler, I was like, nah. Like, I could climb that tree. Like, but it's that kind of thing that when you start to grow up and you start to realise that, you know what, like, for some reason, there's always these, no matter what happens, there's always a block. And it's always just been a bit defiant that I'm just like, oh, really? Like, but it's just, I think it worked well with wrestling. I was like, I remember a time at the school and constantly all the boys were able to do one thing. I couldn't get it, but it was just because I couldn't get it. It wasn't because I was a girl, but that part of my brain, I was like, no, I'm doing it. And I physically, the boys like Wolfie and Adrian and everybody had to go, right, stop now or you're going to kill yourself. Let's go. Like, it's not that you're a girl. It's nothing to do with that. It's just you can't do that. So go. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, I do. I find it weird that people find it odd that all of a sudden when you teach girls to wrestle that they're good at it. That's what what it genuinely feels like. It feels like all of a sudden they're like, oh my word. Oh my God. You literally teach them how to do something and they can do it. And you're like, yeah. Like, it's
never been that the skill wasn't there. It's always been the opportunity.
Yeah, but and again, I do think like, and I don't think that there's nothing against like any of the promotions that even run today if like their back catalogue had a brand panties or a thing match, because the flag bearer, the granddaddy was doing it, so why would you not do it? Because the audience coming in, like wrestling, they had an expectation to what they wanted to see, so that's what they got. So I weirdly understand it in a business sense. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have anything against...
It was the times as well. The time and the society has changed a lot since then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I think the whole... You know, when you look at equality on its own outside of wrestling, equality everywhere was not a thing that was talked about. Whereas now it seems to be a thing that's very much focused on. And that's where people realise, like what you're saying, how that none of this stuff was right, that this wasn't allowed to happen. You know, that you weren't allowed to say, I can do this, and there's a lot of like things that I feel connected to wrestling a lot, because I feel like that watching the sort of evolution of what's happened and how people like yourself have just been like, no, fuck this, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna show them that I can do this, and it's so cool to see, and it kind of, it's one of the main things that made me go, well, if they're saying this, maybe I could try and give this a go and see what happens, you know what I mean?
And again, I keep saying, I think as long as you try. See, if you want to do something, try. Exactly. Grant, you might do it and realise, actually, this isn't for me. And that's also fine. Like, failure isn't a bad thing. I think a lot of people are so scared of it that they don't realise that the people that are the most successful in the world have probably been the biggest failures out of us all. Like, I always joke about, like, I've always said that, like, I'm a proud card-carrying member of the Losers Club, because the most successful people in the world are part of the Losers Club, because you only learn when you fail sometimes. Like, if you just keep winning and winning and winning and winning and doing great, really, you learning anything? Where if you fail, then you learn, okay, don't do that again. Like, okay, I don't want to get punched in the face, so maybe I'll move my face. Okay, maybe I don't want to, maybe I'll get better at this, or I'll read that better, or I'll do this better, or I'll try a different approach. Like, scientists are the best, the greatest minds in the world failed hundreds before they got it right. And it's the same across anything. Like, yeah, there's at least try. It's the best thing I can do. And I'm here to say that, yeah, you might not succeed at it, but that's okay. You're not going to succeed at everything. I don't succeed at everything. You won't succeed at everything. Everybody won't succeed at everything. But if you don't try, you never know. You might be really good at it. Like, it's the same with me. Like, I never thought I'd be a wrestler. Never. Like, I never seen myself being that. Like, I always thought, if I try that, I'm going to get rejected, and I don't want to get rejected by the thing that I love most in the world. So I'm not going to bother. And then as soon as I tried, I was like, oh dear Lord, this is where I was meant to be all along. Why have I taken so long to do this? And it's because I didn't try, and I'm the prime example of just try. It's okay if it doesn't go well, but it's better when it does. Like, when it does go well, it's the best. And when it doesn't, well, so you tried. You can at least scratch off that you tried, and then you go find your new thing to try.
I think that's a great message to burn this up on, to be fair. Like that, listening to that, I'm like, I'm so motivated. Like, want to go to the gym or something now, man?
Let's go now.
Let's go do this right now, man.
Yeah, let's do this.
Like, incredibly motivating, inspiring, everything. I mean, honestly, I could talk to you for hours, and I don't. I can tell you right now, I don't say that to everybody. I've still got. Do you know?
Sorry, Leighton, you were boring. I take that back. I'm sure Leighton has a great story. I know it very well. And that's why I can happily say that. Like, but you're not as exciting as me. Sorry, mate. Sorry.
Do you know how bad it is to do like an hour and a half and still have like 10 questions? It's honestly, it's been such an enjoyable chat, and I'm going to just finish by plugging ICW's event, but also before I do that, I think it's worth noting, just when you said that, I'm, from a personal point of view, just really grateful for everything that all the wrestlers that have come on this podcast and the support you've all given me for no real reason, really. Like,
I feel like that was you going, why are you nice to me?
Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, but it's like these guys, you know, I've looked up to wrestlers for so long in my life, and to have people come in and want to help me succeed at this has been such a weird sort of experience of being like, oh, that the people are so, I didn't realise people could be so nice, you know? It's like,
I mean, I think it's one of those things where I think at the end of the day, it's the same sort of thing. You're trying something new. You're trying something different, and you're approaching it with your perspective as well, which is a unique perspective that we don't understand, and we get a little bit of that too from you. But also, it's what I'm saying, like, you're trying something. We had to try wrestling. We had to go through that weird, scary moment of, like, healing the bruises on our backs for running ropes for the first time, which is a very real thing. And getting hit in the face by properly hit in the face for the first time and going, oh, do I still want to do this? Yes, I do. Carry on. You're doing something different. You're trying something new. And I think all the wrestlers, we've all experienced that at some point. And we've all had our ups and we've all had our downs. And I think it's, yeah, I think anybody that says no, they're more just, it's nothing against you. They're just scared of this thing in front of their face more than anything. But they'll get over it. Come on.
That's it. Like, all my life, I've always felt like as if it was going to be a thing where, you know, people are scared of the idea of this guy's in a wheelchair. What if he comes out the wheelchair and does something bad and then something happens to him and it's all of a sudden? Do you know what I mean? It's like there's this fear of like, I don't want to be responsible if this disabled guy gets hurt for this, you know? And it's just, I've had that my whole life, so it's been very much, I know that that's like a world viewpoint, or has been for most of my life. So to have that, you know, it's been a very surreal sort of experience, and I'm extremely thankful for it and everything that you have done. So appreciate it.
Right. I'll say it's quite alright for everybody.
I'll let you have the final word and plug in the event coming up, Shug's House Party.
Yeah, so Shug's House Party is a weekender. So, I mean, come for the weekend. Come on, like, didn't just come one night? That's boring. And if you've got bairns, wains, children, whatever you want to call them, depending on where you're from, there's also the big family wrestling show as well, which is on the Saturday, day 2. I'm on that as well. So yeah, night 1, I will be defending my ICW Women's World Championship against Session Moth Martina, which I'm going to win because, well, I'm just too bitter not to. But well, I'm winning. That's it. And then the second night, I'm actually going against Harley Hudson, who's this new sort of girl from Liverpool. Incredibly scouse, incredibly adorable, and I'm going to flatten an incredible amount when I'm sorry, hen. I like you, but yeah, wrong one to pick. Wrong one to go. Yeah. Why did you not ask? Am I a wrestling Spartan first? But yeah, that's going to be. I'm going to throw her around like a wet trackie, and then flatten her. That's going to be day 2, and that's going to be in front of children. But yeah, tickets still available on Ticketmaster. And yeah, come along. It's like the best weekend of wrestling in the summer. And if it's the first time to Scotland, if you're coming for down south, get yourself a pizza crunch. You can thank me later.
There you go. That's a wrap. I'm really looking forward to it.